Hey, good morning, everybody. Robert Phoenix here, broadcasting to you once again. I gotta get my Al in the picture. He moves overnight. So, broadcasting to you live again from Fredericksburg, Texas. And it is the 2nd of October. The year, of course, is 2018. How is everybody this morning? We're right on time today. Yeah, baby. On time. And I'm drinking my super coffee, my power coffee. If I had an investor, I could make hundreds of millions of dollars off this coffee. It's so good. So good. Yeah. What's going on? What is happening out there? We have news, breaking news. Hey, there's Judy. There's some breaking news. Judy's in the chat room. She's back on the case. Good morning, Judy. Nice to see you today as well. We have breaking news today. Of course, it's about Kavanaugh and Blasey. By the way, Emily Moyer and I did a show last night, and it's one of our mashes. That'll be up today on my channel, and I think on the Off Planet channel as well. So you'll be able to check out what we did. And it was a continuation of a theme that I started yesterday, which was the introduction of this idea that we were witnessing the death of the Dionysian culture that has been associated with this country since the 1960s. And there are a lot of really interesting connections. Good morning, Paul the Tuttle. Nice to see you. A lot of interesting connections that I talked about on yesterday's show. And more. Yes, there's more. If you didn't catch yesterday's show, just to give you a quick background, I was looking at hashtag Me Too and the women involved in hashtag Me Too as playing this archetypal role of the Furies who tear Dionysus limb from limb. And as a result of that, well, there's a resurrection story in there too, but we're not getting into the resurrection piece. What we're talking about is the rise of the Apollonian culture or the rise of the sun cult. And in some ways, it's the rise of the dark sun or the black sun cult. Those are two competing versions of the sun. But nonetheless, it is the signaling the end of the Dionysic culture. And I talked about that for the last 15 minutes of the show yesterday. And then Emily and I really get into it for about an hour over on the MASH side. But there's more. Of course, there's always more with a case like this. The White House has decided that it is going to extend and broaden its investigation. Good morning, Lori Adams. Welcome to the show. And so they've decided that they're going to talk to people who might have false accusations. And this is per Chuck Grassley, the male component of the lizard couple, the reptilian couple. I guess he'd be Father Dragon and Dianne Feinstein would be Mother Dragon. Put a wig on Chuck Grassley. He looks just like Dianne Feinstein. Take those glasses off. They're one and the same. They hatch from the same brood. So he's saying, well, let's go after, let's bring in the false accusations. Well, what is the reason that he's doing this? Is it because they want to broaden the scope and seem just incredibly fair about the whole thing? Do they want to use the false accusations as kind of a springboard to show what a sham this is and punch holes into everything? Possibly. Trump has decided, the White House decided to broaden and widen the scope of the investigation. So we may not be looking at a week. Meanwhile, this is moving to the Senate floor and it's going to vote. So we're watching these two parallel tracks taking place at the same time. And the question is will he be elected? Well, it depends on what they find and what they drum up and lie about in the process. This is a very tricky time, just in terms of where we are societally. And I look, Emily and I talked about this last night, and she's just like burn it all down. And I to a large extent I kind of agree with her, right? But we can't, because we don't have anything else in its place. You don't really fire somebody unless you got a better replacement in mind. Okay, like I play fantasy football. I know it's not very enlightened, but it gives me a sense of real distraction. So I don't get rid of a player until I figure out I've got somebody else in its place. We don't get rid of the system until we have another system in place, and a system that is better and more representative and fairer and less top heavy, more horizontal, less vertical, right? I mean, so just saying we got to. So what Emily and I do agree upon is the disinvestment of government as the ultimate authority. That part we do agree on. So you hear more about that in our talk, which will be popping up live, not live, but recorded from yesterday. So this is the reason why this is such a pivotal time, because it represents a breakdown in the system. And no matter how you feel about the system, and I have very strong feelings about the system, I'm still in agreement that this needs to proceed in a pace and in a way that is both timely and fashionable based on how it's gone down for the last 200 years. Now, what's going to happen is that the Supreme Court is going to have, I believe they're going to have four, right? They're going to have four, they're going to have 8 justices until theoretically Kavanaugh's approved. So what's slated to come before the Supreme Court in the next couple of months that could be very, very important to build upon, or rule upon? I don't know. I don't have the docket in front of me. So this is something to keep in mind as well. There's not that tiebreaker because Anthony Kennedy's leaving. He's gone. He's taking his gold watch and he's going off to wherever he's going, right? Excuse me. Good coffee. So this is actually something to keep your eye on. There's only going to be 8 Supreme Court justices. Okay. So that said, there is new information today. And where do you hear this stuff first? Where do you hear this stuff first? I think there's probably maybe a handful of YouTube channels. And I mean a handful. And I'm not sitting here beating my chest and stomping my foot, but what did I talk about early on in this whole process? That Christine Blasey-Ford was involved in mind control through her family and through her education at Stanford University, right? Not her education, I'm sorry. She was educated in North Carolina, through her profession at Stanford University, under the aegis and the tutelage of Dr. Frederick Melgis. And I'm going to talk about Melgis today. Oh, look who's here joining the show right on time. Say hello, Jasper. There's Jasper. Right on time. Well, actually, he's not on time. He's Jasper about 9 minutes late. He must have something very important to do. So I'm going to read you a piece today that's breaking, okay? And you're going to hear echoes of what I've been talking about now for well over a week. And here it is. This is from the Gateway Pundit. Huge! Christine Ford published 2008 article on self-hypnosis used to retrieve and create artificial situations. This is straight out of the work of Dr. Frederick Melgis. Okay. So Christine Ford has not turned over her therapist's notes to the Senate regarding her suppressed memories about Judge Kavanaugh abusing her decades earlier. This may be because if the memories were revealed through hypnosis, they would be absolutely inadmissible in the court of law in many states, including New York and Maryland. So this goes on. It says there were accusations that Christine Ford was under a hypnotic trance during her testimony. Of course she was. Now, whether she self-induced that trance or she was triggered, that's a wholly different. It's not really all that different. One is self-administered, and the other just comes in from the outside. So this is from 2008. One of Christine Blasey-Ford's research articles in 2008 included a study on self-hypnosis. The practice of self-hypnosis is used to retrieve important memories and create artificial situations. So there's a woman by the name of Margot Cleveland who is a professor herself, and she wrote. She found an article. She found Blasey's article. Now, it is clear that she's not the only person who wrote this paper. And the paper is, and you'll love this, meditation with yoga, group therapy with hypnosis, and psychoeducation for long-term depressed mood, a randomized pilot trial. Now this comes into the aegis, or this comes into the subject matter of what Frederick Malgus was doing, which was basically creating future memories. That was part of his work. And I talked about Malgus in great detail in his relationship with a woman by the name of Lois Lang, L-A-N-G, not Lois Lane, but Lois Lang, and how he took her in as a homeless person. And months later, she is in Washington, D.C., putting a bullet through Nicholas Deek, and Nicholas Deek being this guy who was connected to the banking of the CIA and Iran-Contra and all that good stuff. And who was involved with Nicholas Deek? Ralph Blasey. So this is incredibly incestuous. Now, can one draw a conclusion that Christine Blasey-Ford, being a number of people who contributed to the paper, could she actually have used the technologies inside of this paper to affect who she is and how she appeared to the public? I'm still going to take the position that she was triggered and that she was traumatized, because I feel like whatever happened in 1980 through 1984 or wherever, because she can't even remember that, that triggering probably took place then, and that she has a history likely of being placed into hypnotic states or partitioned off traumatized states as well. So this will never come out, though, as part of the investigation. And let's be clear, the FBI, or the FIB as I like to call them, knows everything about Christine Blasey-Ford. They do. Are you kidding me? If you're from a freaking intelligence family and you're working at Stanford and you're involved in programs like the one that I've mentioned, as well as other programs, of course they're going to know about you. You're a person of interest. There are very deep files on Christine Blasey-Ford, deep files on Brett Kavanaugh. Brett Kavanaugh has a very strong connection with the Bush family. His wife is deeply embedded in the Bush family. But again, we're not talking about this. This is not what's being broached. And if there was an investigation, if they did want to get into sort of the real depth and the real dirt behind these people, I would clearly welcome it. But it's not, and they don't. And they just continue to trot out this dog and pony show so that they can rile people up. And it is the next piece of conflict that we are drawn to and have our heads wrapped around and talk about endlessly and breathlessly. And it taps into our emotional bodies. And it's yet another thing that we'll probably take into the holidays with our families and create an aura of mistrust and cynicism, even if people go to see their families, because most families, or not most, but there are quite a few that are broken, and they got broken in 2016 with the electoral process, which is unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. One of the things that I think that in this country we've taken for granted is the notion of family. And if you've ever encountered people from Europe, especially from places like Central Europe, that their relationship with their family is very, very important. And in many cases, the family will live on the same property, and they'll have generations of that family living on the same property. I don't know why in this country we have demonized it as such. Maybe it's because in the US chart, the moon is in Aquarius, and the moon represents the home and family, and Aquarius is different. It's unusual. It's detached. It can be a bit voyeuristic, especially the moon in Aquarius, which is why porn is probably so big in this country because of that moon in Aquarius, a very voyeuristic position in the chart. But we don't have the same values around family, even though we're a Cancerian country. We have planets in Cancer in the US chart, but we don't seem to value it in some ways. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Pardon me. Okay. I think that's going to do it for that. I usually hit 3. I don't know why I'm at 2. But you know what I'm saying? So the family was already disintegrated. The family became disintegrated, and guess where? The 1960s. And I think there are some great things, some very cool things that came out of the 1960s. Don't get me wrong. Great music, fantastic music, good movies. There were some interesting writers. I mean, in many ways, for better or worse. And there's a lot of information out there that the CIA was behind the propagandization of modern art, and Tavistock was behind rock and roll and all this stuff, right? And that's probably very true. And to a large extent, I don't really care because the music was at least good. The music industry has died now. It's died. It's dead. One of the things that Emily and I talk about on the mashup is that there has been, when we talk about the Dionysian culture, we talk about rock and roll. And it's libidinous, it's forbidden, right? It is drunken, ecstatic, wild. We don't really have that anymore. You know, I was watching a commercial the other day. I've seen it a few times. It's a completely, totally annoying commercial. It's with Adam Levine, who's the lead singer of Maroon 5, one of the most annoying bands in history. And it starts off with him, got his shirt off. He's got, he's all tatted up and he's playing drums. Oh man, I'm primal. I'm primal. Ooh, 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 ooh. Look at me, right? And then it has him doing something else. And he winds up going up to the roof of some hotel or building in LA. And there are CGI crowds in the street below. And, he gets up there and he's got his shirt off and he's got his guitar in his hand and right? That's like fake danger. Fake danger. There was a time when listening to rock and roll was kind of dangerous. Got out there on that edge. That's a fake edge. That's fake danger. It's commodified. It's commercialized. It is not. It is not Dionysic at all. In fact, in some ways, it's Apollonian. But there are no Dionysic figures in rock and roll anymore. Rock and roll is dead, by the way. It died a long time ago. There's some nice little rock bands still playing around. Don't get me wrong, but it's dead. The new genre is hip hop. It has been for a while, but I'm going to go on the record and I'm going to say hip hop is dead. Music is dead. Music is dead. And music is connected to Dionysus. Wine, food, and song. Music is dead. So what has replaced music? Well, Emily and I talked about this. And Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, passed away. Passed away. She's gone. God bless her. What a great voice. Amazing voice. Huge presence. Real soul. Real soul. Right on the heels of that, we have this commercial with Serena Williams and Nicki Minaj. And Serena Williams becomes the Queen of Queens. This was shot in Queens. The commercial was shot in Queens. It's for, I believe, Beats headphones. So it's shot in Queens. She's there with drag queens. So she's the Queen of Queens. And this is on the heels of the Queen of Soul passing away. So it's a passing of the torch. But the passing of the torch goes from music, soul, little rock and roll, to the Queen of Queens, which is athletics, sports, performance, right? Dionysic, Apollonian. And of course, the king is LeBron James. They are the new royal couple, right? They're the new royal couple of the corporatized, commodified version of Apollonian culture. So I'm not gonna go into this too deep because there's stuff in there I don't want to cross over with. I want you. It's a great piece with Emily and I. Emily brings some really interesting, insightful. She gets these crazy connections sometimes with what she's exploring and surfacing with the language. Really, really crazy stuff. Um, so interesting times, eh? Very, very interesting. Now, of course, there was a big spending bill that went through, and there's more money for Planned Parenthood through the DOJ of all people, through Department of Justice. And I don't think they'll ever roll back Roe v. Wade. I just don't. I don't think it's going to happen. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's going to happen. However, when the nodes flip and we go into the true node in Cancer, then that might be a time where it might get more attention. But it wouldn't just be, oh, we want to keep our children. It would be very sort of lunar based in women's rights and maternity and all that good stuff, right? So if you look at the nodes, we're moving out of the true node in Leo, and we're going to be moving into true node in Cancer for about a year and a half. The nodes, I think, last 17 months roughly, and then they move to the next sign, right? So the next sign after Cancer will be Gemini, and perhaps there will be a synthesis between Leo, the sun, the masculine principle, and the moon, Cancer, and the feminine principle. Perhaps we're moving towards some kind of orderly synthesis with the true node in Gemini, or maybe we're just moving to another version of the freak show. Hopefully, we'll all be around to figure it out and witness it. And this is an absolutely great time to be alive. Believe it or not, it is a great time to be alive. And one of the things that we get to define or redefine ourselves against is the Babylon system that we're currently in. Everything from the inception of Babylon to where we are now is part of one system. And it's embedded in the language. It's embedded in a number of the laws. It's certainly embedded in religious laws. And it's embedded in the symbolism and certain religious practices that date to Babylon, back to Babylon, and before. You know, there's still animal sacrifices. There's still really dark material happening with kids. And some of it is like sanctified. It's like, okay, it's all good. It's under the guise of religion. I don't know how many of you know that when boys are circumcised, right? When boys are circumcised in Judaism, there's a guy by the name of the Moil who, you know, peels the potato. And not every Moil does this, by the way, but there are Moils who will then suck the head of the penis of the boy to clean the blood. Okay, this. I mean, come on, you know. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's brutal. Who does that in the 21st century? Well, the Muslims do too. They've got clitorectomies. I mean, come on, you know. And I'm not. I'm just looking. I don't care if it was, you know, a religion named Frumania. I don't care. It's like it just is not right. You know, it's just not right. Either way, it would be great if we could theoretically end those practices. Well, you know, what country was it? Was it God? It was it Poland or Hungary? No, it was Iceland. And Iceland wanted to ban circumcision. They wanted to ban circumcision, and boy, did they catch some heat! Holy smokes, they got heat, and all of a sudden. So let me tell you what's in this coffee today. Of course, I have. Oh, excuse me. Of course, I have a shade grown, fair trade bean. That's important. Got to feel good about where that coffee's coming from. Have that in there. and I have goat butter. Goat butter, yes. Goat butter is great, by the way. If you've never had goat butter, highly recommend it. So good. It is savory and it's really good for you. Doesn't have the same, weird little thing that most people can't digest with butter. It's great. And then I use a little sweetener, molasses and sorghum, which is quite good. And then what else? I have this faux shoe stuff. It's from China, and it's a great tonifier. And then I found this stuff called Rosalind's Blend, which is really good. It has turmeric and cinnamon, and has maca and all kinds of goodness. Normally, I put a little bit of coconut oil in here, but I'm out. Anyways, my little power coffee. So we've got this charade going on with Blasey-Ford. What else is happening out there in the world, the news world? Let's just do a quick scan, find out what else is taking place here. Let's see what we got going. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum, bum. There was a big election that took place in Quebec, and they won. The Coalition Avenir wins historic major vote in Quebec. So if you are a anti-globalist, this is actually good news. And I was talking to one of my dear friends from Canada, and she's just kind of embarrassed. How would you like to have Justin Trudeau as your prime minister or president? Trudeau, Trump, Trudeau, Trump, Trudeau, Trump. Yeah. Let's see. Anything else interesting in the news? Yeah, it says the ruling Liberals, this is from Quebec, are headed for a historic defeat, meaning CAQ will form the next government. Say goodbye to the burqa in Quebec. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We know how these things look on the surface, and all of a sudden, they get a knock on the door. Right? Excuse me, but I'd like to have a word with you about the recent elections. I'd like to corroborate this with my good friend Murray, who lives down in New Zealand. This is from Boing Boing. If you're traveling to New Zealand, you may not want to refuse the digital strip search, because if you do, you'll be fined $5,000. I want Murray to see if he can confirm this. I'm going to read this. New Zealand's Customs and Excise Act of 2018 went into effect today. That means travelers who refuse to give their phone or laptop password to customs officials will be fined $5,000. Whoa! How about that? You don't give them your password, you're getting fined $5K, and their devices will be confiscated and forensically searched. Customs Minister Chris Foy said these digital strip searches are necessary because a lot of the organized crime groups are becoming a lot more sophisticated in the ways they're trying to get things across the border. And if we do think they're up to that kind of business, then getting intelligence from smartphones and computers can be useful for prosecution. Isn't this interesting? Isn't this interesting? Now, I believe that there's a process going on where everything is being shown to us, but it's being shown to us in reverse. We're living in the inverted universe. I'll read this sentence again. A lot of the organized crime groups are becoming a lot more sophisticated in the ways they're trying to bring things across the border. And if we do think they're doing that kind of business, then getting intelligence on smartphones and computers can be useful for prosecution. So what's happening is that, yeah, the organized crime groups are really getting a lot more sophisticated. In fact, they're spying on you all the freaking time. 24/7 surveillance under the guise of security. Correct? Yeah. So instead of really looking at that, what are they doing? Well, they're going to push it back out to some, Joe and Jane Doe going into New Zealand. Can we have the password for your phone, please? And what are they going to do? What are they going to do when they get that password? Get into your phone, go through, look at your pictures. I mean, this is crazy. This is crazy. What if there's a picture of, a little girl, uh, maybe 4 years old, and she's wearing a little pair of shorts and no top, and she's getting splashed on, at a family event or gathering. How many times have you seen little girls who haven't developed their breasts? It's out there, right? It's out there. What happens if that's on your phone? And that little girl happens to be your daughter, and it's at a family gathering, and all of a sudden they see that, you could be really fucked. Customs spokesperson Terry Brown said the law struck the delicate balance between a person's right to privacy and customs law enforcement responsibilities. I personally have an e-device and it maintains all my records, banking data, et cetera, et cetera. So we understand the importance of, if you have an e-device that maintains all your personal banking records, and you're an idiot. I'm sorry. There are smart people that listen to my show, watch this. I don't mean to insult you. I apologize in advance. But if you allow your stuff to take place in those domains, you may want to reconsider that. I don't. Then again, I'm an outlier. Counsel for Civil Liberties spokesperson Thomas Beagle said the law was an unjustified invasion of privacy. Of course it is. Nowadays, we've got everything on our phones. We've got all our personal life, all our doctor's records, our emails. No, I don't. I don't have doctor's records on my phone. First of all, I don't go to a doctor. Let's be clear about that. They don't have to tell you what the cause of that suspicion is. There's no way to challenge it. That's right. So maybe I'll ask our buddy, Murray down under, he feels about this and how real this actually is. Now, this stuff is going to be coming. It'll be ubiquitous. This is part of the all-seeing eye state. Let's see what else we have. We got cyclones happening in the Pacific. They're monster cyclones. They're taking place. Let's see what else do we have here. Anything interesting on the health front? Let's see. How about the cyber accounts, or the accounts that got hacked on Facebook? 50 million accounts. I've been on Facebook in about a year. It feels like that. About a week. I've been taking a Facebook break. Feels great. Feels absolutely great. And I'll be back on Facebook. I have to, because it's important to my work and connecting with people and networking. But it just felt so good to be kind of outside of that vector. Totally good. Here's a statistic that people need to take into consideration. So you baby boomers out there, and I'm kind of on the edge of the boom. You are getting to a place where you're beginning to wind down. The first baby boomers were Trump, really, born in, what's Trump, 46, I believe, 46. He's 73 this year. That's really the start of the beginning of the baby boom. It's 1946. And then it ends right around 58, 59, right around there, about 58, 59, 60, kind of an outlier. There's that little generational slice, 60 to about 65. It's called Generation Jones. Look it up. That's what I'm a part of. I'm going to read this to you guys. It just doesn't apply to people that are aging. It applies to everybody. Loneliness is on the rise in the U.S., and no one is immune. Research published earlier this year found that people 18 to 20 years old were more likely than any other U.S. population to be lonely. But new data suggests that older adults are also lonely in high numbers. More than a third of adults are over age 45 are lonely, according to a new report from the AARP Foundation. Well, that percentage of 35% remains unchanged from a 2010 version of the survey. The over 45 population has increased substantially during those 8 years. It's part of the baby boom, meaning about 5 million more adults, almost 48 million in total, can now be considered lonely. Think about that. 48 million people walking around feeling lonely. In the new research, more than 3,000 adults answered questions to the UCLA or on the UCLA loneliness scale, a 20-item survey designed to measure social connection and loneliness. They also answered questions about their health, lifestyles, socioeconomic profiles, social networks, and more. The report found that people who were physically isolated and who had small social networks were most likely to be lonely. Meanwhile, those who reported large and diverse social groups, frequent contact with friends, neighbors, family members, involvement in community, religious groups, marriage, and regular sexual activity, were less likely to be lonely. Oh, that's common math. Good mental and physical health were also associated with lower levels of loneliness, which isn't surprising, since loneliness and social isolation are linked to a range of health issues, including substance use, heart problems. Adults with higher levels of education and income, two factors consistently linked to better health, were also less likely to be lonely, the report found. How about that? Consistent with past research, the report also found that loneliness levels decreased with age. 46% of adults ages 45 to 49 were classified as lonely, compared to just 24% of those older than 70. How about that? This trend could reflect the well-established dip in happiness that tends to occur around middle age. That's right around the second Saturn opposition, by the way. Followed by better quality of life in the later years. The report says it's also possible that because loneliness is associated with a number of health problems, people who report high levels of loneliness are less likely to live until older age. Okay. So it's an interesting trend. And I do believe in this digital age, this deeply immersive digital age, that loneliness is a real issue. And in some cases, it's very paradoxical, right? Because right now, people are in the chat room, we're connecting. We're not feeling lonely, at least not right now. But at the same time, this technology has tended to isolate us even more. We got a lot of comments in here. Let's see who says, let's see. Also, there's much to be said for the Apollonian side of music. Hermes invented the lyre, gave it to Apollo, who gave it to Orpheus, the first musical therapist. Yeah, it'll be a different kind of music. Maybe it'll be returned to classical music. Who never knows? Fredericksburg, the Go Town. Haha, I Robert say that. And I've got this old shoe stuff. Quality, guilty until proven innocent. That's Maurice talking about the Kavanaugh affair. Midlife crisis time used to be the term of the day for that period. It's the Saturn opposition. It's what happens at 43. It happens again at 73, and Trump is about to go through the Saturn opposition this year on his birthday. And it's going to be heavy sledding for Donald Trump. Equicentric, like boomers did in the past. What else? Nobody can do boomers like boomers. Hearing all this brings to mind dipping my arms in a vat of poop to find something at the bottom. The deep swamp. Sorry, I'm just getting caught up on some of these comments. So yeah, it's a great chat room, by the way. Welcome back, Maury. It's been a while. And then Kathleen Lamont says, hello, good morning from Waynesville, North Carolina. I got to get out to North Carolina, man. I got peeps out there. That's going to be part of my road show. It's got to be part of my road show. I think North Carolina is on the map. You know what I really want to do? I really want to go to Memphis. I've got this thing now for Memphis. By the way, if you want to go live in a place that's really affordable, Memphis is the place. I'm sure there's some real downside to Memphis. Likely it hasn't been so gentrified that there are parts of Memphis that are still pretty edgy, right? You know, like New Orleans was 30 years ago. But I was on a lifestyle site in Memphis, and it was interesting, you know, like the different clubs and music. And, you know, this is a place where Americana still has a kind of a foothold. There's a guy, really famous musician, Eddie Harris, who has a song called Compared to What. He performs every Thursday night You can just go and watch him in Memphis. So I want to go to Memphis. Maybe I'll go to Memphis and then cruise on over to North Carolina, rent myself a car. Yes, come to Asheville. We'll set a place to table. Yeah. So what I would love to do is maybe have a little bit of a working journey to North Carolina. Maybe set up a few informal classes and some readings and stuff. And I think it'd have to be after the first of the year because I'll be going away at least one more time before the year is over. And then we have the holidays. We're locking down for the holidays. So I'm thinking maybe like February. Maybe February. How's that sound? How's that sound, North Carolina? Let's see. What else do we have going on out there? I like looking at Yahoo News because it represents in some ways the epitome of the mainstream in its worst and most grotesque possible way. It's full of propaganda programming. Proceeding well. Top Democrat. Sheldon Whitehouse. That's a guy I'd like to slap. He's got a slappable face. He is one of these arrogant. Sorry. Oh, how about this? How about this? Amazon has raised the minimum wage for U.S. workers to $15 an hour. Way to go, Amazon. Standing up for workers' rights. FBI talks with school friend of U.S. Supreme Court Justice nominee Kavanaugh. Let's see what else. Yahoo loves to push the race thing. They're like, they're a portal for the so the divide and conquer racial strategy tactic is still alive and well on Yahoo. You see these all the times. Applebee's waitress told we don't tip black people by customers. You see at least two of those stories every single day on Yahoo. Let's see. Anything else that's related to that? Oh, Julie Swetnick. She's getting her 15 minutes of fame. She speaks out in an NBC interview. Michael Avenatti. Client. Let's see. What else? Amal Clooney looks chic and sophisticated in an orange dress while speaking at UN. Okay. Brett Kavanaugh, only 31% of U.S. voters believe Supreme Court nominee over sex assault allegations. It's about right, probably even lower. Let's see. Jenna Jameson says the keto diet cracks the code for getting rid of belly fat. Isn't it interesting how we've elevated porn stars in our culture? Like Stormy Daniels has become this like epitome of virtue. It's like resuscitating her virtue. Jenna Jameson is kind of in that camp too. She's become this post-porn star. It's interesting how we elevate them. Let's see. What else? Oh, Kanye West. He was slammed by Chris Evans for his MAGA tweet, and people are loving it. Kanye, man. I love Kanye. He's got that Gemini switch he flipped. No, buried way down here. The Kavanaugh investigation is a sham, and Republicans all know it. By the way, Jeff Flake was at some kind of Soros event. Of course he was. Let's see. What else do we have here? Tucker Carlson. It's about punishing everybody who looks like Brett Kavanaugh. What Tucker Carlson is saying is that this is a war against white males. That's what he's saying. He didn't say it that way, but he's kind of saying it that way. Kavanaugh's Harvard Law class canceled. Well, he's a teacher there, not teaching. Anything else on Yahoo? No, I think it's it. But Yahoo absolutely loves to push and promote these agendas. They're a propaganda portal. And Yahoo used to actually be interesting, like when it first started. and Jerry Yang owned it. And then it went through massive financial trouble. You never hear about Yahoo having financial trouble anymore, do you? No. It's because Google invested in Yahoo, and Google basically owns Yahoo. So they become a propaganda portal for Google Inc. Let me just finish off my power coffee here. All right. Let me check back in the chat room, see what's happening. I know a good Airbnb in Nashville. Sophia's Emporium, Glasscock Kin from New Bern, North Carolina, and Memphis. Yeah, man, I'm into this Memphis thing. I gotta get to Memphis. We should all experience something that feels like it's about to go away. Not that it may go away, but if it feels like it's going to go away, we should experience it. We should get it inside of our bones, right? To remember what it's like to have that connection with something that's vital. We have this here in this area in Fredericksburg. There's a little town just west of here called Lukenbach. And you can go to Lukenbach on the weekends, and you're always going to connect in with some kind of really interesting music, deeply sort of, embedded in Texas Hill Country culture and, singer-songwriter, Texas roots. Every now and then somebody famous will show up. It's an interesting place. It's not a real, super functional town. It used to be a long time ago. It was one of the towns that was settled out here by the German free thinkers, which settled in Lukenbach, Fredericksburg, and New Braunfels. It's a very interesting group of people. I'll tell you what I'm going to do tomorrow. We're going to follow up on the Kavanaugh stuff, of course, because it's in the news and it's worthwhile. But I'm going to talk a little bit about Fredericksburg tomorrow. And I'm going to talk about the free thinkers and who they were and why I think that they are an important cultural movement that history has just almost completely forgotten. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this area that I'm living in tomorrow. And if you have any interest in, not just understanding a piece of Americana, but a part of the world, this is a global, international slice of who we are. So I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. Let's put that on the books since I brought it up today. All right, why don't we get on out of here? A crisp 45 minutes, right? 47 minutes, 25 seconds. And let me just say this before I split. You always have the opportunity, and the option to, I'm going to use this in a way, and I hope it doesn't sound cliched, to be positive. We always have the opportunity to look at our situation and find something that allows us to get to the next level, to round up to the next figure. You always have a choice. Even if you're deeply embedded in the midst of very tense and intense emotional situations, this is where we're tested. You always have a choice. So with that being said, do your best to make a positive stand in your life today. Do things that feed your spirit, your body, your mind, your soul. Look for the best in others, but don't be afraid to be truthful when the opportunity occurs, both with yourself and situations that demand that the truth be spoken. And when it happens, do so in a way that's respectful. But don't ever veer off the path of truth, because when you do, then your message is diluted. And it doesn't do anybody any good, the person you're sharing it with or even yourself. So with that, use your heart to say open what's possible, your head to discern what's real. That's it. Robert Phoenix, 50 Minutes of Flame. I'll catch you tomorrow.